Hi, everyone. Well, I wanted to at least wrap up a little bit the last 3 weeks and um, thereby sort of lead us into what's coming, because this is sort of a momentous shift that we're going into, coming into this coming week, with moving into the Abrahamic religions, the monotheistic religions, from these um, Asian Asian traditions, Hinduism and Buddhism. It's really a huge shift, and it could cause some cognitive dissonance, I would think. It's like changing several gears at once, and uh, yet, but it's very interesting for us to see what that does, to see where we're still on, perhaps on the same territory. Are we on totally different territory when we move into these new religions, or are we on the same territory looked at very differently? And so that's just a very interesting journey. And I wanted to sort of say a couple of things. So first of all, the subject of suffering and the Four Noble Truths has been a topic of discussion, and rightly so. And one could feel better by knowing that the problem of suffering has been discussed by theologians and philosophers and all kinds of people for millennia. So it's not like it's an easy knot to untie, and one may think that one has as answers to it, but I don't think that answers are really easy with respect to that issue. But with respect to the Four Noble Truths, I think that we where it's possible to perhaps go off track is to take the first noble truth as an absolute metaphysical statement. Life is suffering. And all of us are going to have a reaction to that. And I don't think that that is quite the right way to take it. It's more like it's a reflection on life. It's an observation on life. It's not an absolute metaphysical truth. Because if it was, then the fourth noble truth would contradict it, because it says there's a way out of it. In this life, there's a way out of suffering. So all of life is not suffering, obviously, because there's a way out of it. One could live in a way, one could, with realization, be outside of suffering, have no suffering. So it's not an absolute metaphysical statement, and I think if we treat it not that way, then that makes things easier. At least it does for me. So. And again, suffering, the word suffering is a translation. Some people translate it as pain. Some people translate it as unsatisfactoriness. But certainly it's an observation. Probably all of us can make the same observation, that life is painful. It has pain, and it's had pain when we've approached it in certain kinds of ways, and really this is what the truth is saying, that the Four Noble Truths are saying. So just to be open to it. It's not that we don't have to swallow these religions whole by any means. We're free to react in various different kinds of ways. The second kind of way was when we're getting into the sort of text like the Heart Sutra and the Middle Way. I want to say, or Zen koans. I mean, there's a fundamental principle there that's captured in this story, the story of the finger pointing at the moon. I don't have a picture of a moon, but I wish I did. Probably most of you know this story, but I'll tell it anyway, so that we're reminded of it. And I don't know its exact details, and there probably are various forms of it. But in this story, and it's a story that is usually recognized as coming from the Zen tradition. There's this nun that comes to the sage, usually sitting under some tree somewhere, and the nun comes up to him, and she's trying to understand this particular text, a sutra or something that she's reading, and she says to him, can you explain this text to me, this sutra? I'm not quite understanding all of it. And he says to her, well, you'll have to explain the symbols to me because I'm illiterate, I can't read. And this is shocking to her. And she's like, whoa, how can you explain the text to me if you can't understand the symbols and read the symbols yourself? And this is his response. It's a famous response. He's like, the truth is like the bright moon in the sky. Words are like a finger pointing at the moon. The truth doesn't lie in the finger. The truth lies in the moon. If you look at the finger, i.e. the words, you're not seeing the moon. The moon is beyond the words and the words. So the words can only point. They're like a finger pointing at the moon. We should not get lost in the words. We have to go to something that you can only experience. Staring at the full moon in the night sky is an experience. You can't describe it really. You can't convey it to someone else who hasn't had that experience. It's an experience. The truth is like that. So, and words can only point. So we're throughout this course, we're in this position where words can only point, and we should remember that when we're reading these original texts. Words can only point. How do words point? In various different kinds of ways. Heart Sutra is one way. Okay, Zen koans are another way to get past the conceptual mind in some way. So poetry is another way, and that exists in Zen too. So so there are many ways for words to point, and we'll be reading Rumi's poems, for example. They point. They can't give you that experience. But they can point towards it. Well, you have to look beyond the words into the realm of experience, into the realm of the bright moon in the night sky. So, so usually if one would study language, for example, then one would find that actually that's all language can ever do, is point to something that we can interpret through our experience. We use metaphor constantly, and most words are metaphorical words. They point to something in their origin. They point to something that was not what the word was originally. It's like this. We have to say it's like this. We can't say it's this because, and this includes everything that we experience internally. It has to be. Which is all of our experience. We have to say it's like this, right? Because we can't put our finger on that thing. So, and that leads me to talking about metaphor and then mythology. Mythology is another way for words to point beyond themselves, right? So a story that is, you might say, archetypal or something, conveys something powerful that isn't in the actual literal truth of the words. It points beyond itself to a truth that's beyond the story itself, the words contained in the story. And so when I use the word mythological, it's sometimes used as a pejorative, right? It's just myth. Something is just myth. I'm like, no. So nothing is just myth. When something is mythological, that's an indication of its power, not its weakness. So, and it's not to say it's not real either. So the Buddha's life could easily be a true story. We wouldn't know that, but it could easily be. And yet it could also contain many mythological evidence. It might be a life that reflects a deep archetypal truth, that his life really reflected a deep archetypal truth, and that therefore in itself it is mythological in nature and real. It could easily be both are true. And honestly, to me, it doesn't matter. The realness of it doesn't matter because the mythological component is so powerful and true. I personally don't care whether it's true or not. It's not meaningful to me. So there's that, and so now we're going forward into reading texts and about religions that are I don't want to say explicitly mythological, but they're very dependent on texts, right? And in particular the Bible, but then the Quran when we get to Islam. They're very dependent on these texts. And so how you approach these texts is extremely key. In Judaism, which we're going into next, the Torah, how we approach the Torah, and the first week will be on the more sort of Orthodox Judaism, the second week will be on mystical Judaism, Kabbalah. They take this reading of texts with words pointing beyond themselves to a whole new level. And that's very interesting to see and to just experience and speculate about how do we think, what do we think about that? How do we take it? So that is something to be prepared for. And to me, it's absolutely fascinating. It's like the many routes to a kind of truth, and then the kinds of truths that you come to. It's incredible. It's mind-boggling. And so to go deep into basically the Old Testament in the way that they do in Kabbalah it's just incredible, and I don't know what to think about it. It's like scientifically, no, you can't justify interpreting things to that degree and taking things that far, and yet they take it to amazing places. They get to amazing places and amazing realizations and amazing sort of cosmological pictures of our existence. So it's this interesting shift into the theistic religions and very text-based religions, yet nevertheless profound, potentially profound at least. And so we'll see how it all goes. I think that's all I wanted to say. I'll be making another video at the end of this week to introduce mystical Judaism, which I have a profound respect for it as a tradition. So have a good week. And yes, practice. Okay, so we're at this point finished with the Buddhist practice. We will start a Jewish practice next weekend. If you want to keep going with any of the practices that we've done, you're welcome to do that. Or if you want to skip ahead and get into the Jewish practice this week, so you get 2 weeks of it, you're welcome to do that. Or simply continue with your own practices, that's fine too. So this week is kind of, it's free, open season for practice in this week. Okay, everyone, have a good week, and I'll be talking to you soon.